So hello and welcome to today's episode of Bully Beta. Today we're going over Gym Class. You get the drill by now, it's bully, it's cut content, so it's about 80% different from the final game. So let's jump straight in. So you know how Jimmy can just turn up to Gym Class and start it like any other mission, or class actually? Well, for Gym Class, this wasn't the case originally. Similar to how Jimmy is forced to wear an aquaberry sweater in The Eggs, you had to manually change Jimmy into his wrestling attire before starting the class, otherwise you would not be allowed to start it at all. This was probably changed because it legitimately sounds annoying. It also implies that Jimmy may have been given the wrestling uniform very early on, because of how the game's customization worked initially, because it was just like GTA Vice City's, which was outfits only. And those outfits would gradually be unlocked as the game went on, of course. As for Jimmy's wrestling outfit itself, we do have an earlier design of it, but the changes are very minor. The blue was a lighter shade, likely to match the blue which was seen on non-clicks at the time, and the Fourth Academy logo was the full crest, and the only other changes with the shoes, where they look more like boots than sneakers. So Gym Class itself was going to be split into two classes, Dodgeball and Wrestling, as even leftover files refer to it as so. So we're going to cover both classes individually, and we're going to start off with Wrestling first. So while Gym Class was changed to swap between Wrestling and Dodgeball, in the original Wrestling class, Jimmy's wrestling opponents changed too for the final version. In Wrestling Class 1 and 2, Jimmy would be up against Fatty. Wrestling Class 3 and 4 would feature the deleted character Bob, whose model still exists in the game and can be modded back in. That one's common knowledge. And you can also see him in the cutscene for the gym is burning, the most common knowledge of the lot. And Wrestling Class 5 would be against Luis Luna in his gym attire. Now the class structure was actually changed quite a bit. Class 1 and 3 would be tutorial move classes, while classes 2, 4 and 5 would be the ones where Jimmy actually has to fight the opponent to pass the class. So technically, class 1 and 3 where you fight Fatty and learn the moves are unchanged. Now while completely untaught actually, if you fight somebody and have them at humiliation status, if you grapple them to the ground and do a knee drop on them, Jimmy will instead spit on them. Now this move was meant to be taught in Gym Class 3. Now speaking of Wrestling Class 3, there is an oddity many of you may not have noticed, which is the supposed move that Jimmy unlocks, which is the 3-hit combo takedown. You know, the one where you tackle somebody to the ground and you press square, or X, or whatever it is in Anniversary Edition. But the thing is, Jimmy already has this at the very beginning of the game. Now I didn't even know about this until I actually was researching up the content for this video.
I don't like you! I don't deserve this part about you!
Mr. Burton was also going to be much more vocal during this class, as he'd be constantly shouting depending on what was going on. This is pretty much everything he would say in the minigame. Now some of these are used, some of these are not, but anyway, here they are.
Alright, let's try something else. This is going to separate the boys from the girls. I got some real fun for today's class. I've been looking forward to this all week. You left the mat, you ninny! Stay on the mat, you idiot! Throw your opponent off the mat, Jimmy! Don't be such a spaz, Hopkins! Where are you going, Hopkins? Do something, Hopkins! Hopkins, don't be such a girl! You want to fail this class, Hopkins? I thought you were supposed to be tough, Jimmy boy! Don't just bloody well stand there, do something! That's better, Hopkins! That's right, hurt him! That's what I'd like to see! That's right, Hopkins, get close and personal! I love the sound of boys hurting each other. Come on, boys, show me what you got! Okay, boys, no messing around this time. All right, boys, I want to see you sweat. All right, boys, I want you to concentrate. Boys, I want you to give it everything you got.
Another change for Wrestling Class was there was going to be a time limit, which alongside the fact that 3 of the classes had Jimmy actively fighting his opponents, means it would have been possible to fail Wrestling Class, which you can't do at all in the final game. In fact, here are all the lines that Mr. Burton would have said if Jimmy had failed.
You need to train harder, Hopkins, and not waste your time on that art and English crap. This isn't a dance class, you ninny! Get that through your head! Get out of my sight now! I always knew you were useless, Hopkins. You're pathetic, Hopkins! Utterly pathetic!
If Jimmy passed the class, Mr. Burton had 2 sets of dialogue, one telling him not to bother coming anymore because Jimmy's too good, and the other saying Jimmy should return for more classes if he wants, which tells us Rockstar were definitely considering replayable wrestling classes.
Hopkins, I was wrong about you! Maybe you really are a really strong girl! Not too bad, Hopkins. Maybe you're not completely useless, Hopkins. Don't be so damn smug, Hopkins. I'll get you down yet. Wipe that grin off your face, Hopkins. You're not as good as you think. All right, Hopkins, you're quite the wrestler. I want to focus on the beginners, so don't bother coming to any more wrestling classes. All right, Hopkins, you're quite the wrestler. I want to focus on the beginners, but you can come back anytime you want.
These are also the unused intros from Mr. Burton that would start each of the classes off. Now, some of these are semi-used, but the majority of them are not.
All right, wimps, it's time for some wrestling instruction. I'm going to teach you how to grapple an opponent and throw him onto the ground. This will require physical contact between you and your opponent. Don't any of you enjoy it? All right, last class we learned grappling. Today we'll cover escaping from grapples. Good to see you back, ladies. Today we're in for a real treat. Good morning, ladies. Today we'll be doing submissions. Hopkins, drop that nail polish and get on a mat. Good morning, all. One more wrestling class before your quilting circle. Today we'll be looking at some teamwork moves. Good morning, ladies. Today's a test. Show me what you got. Lewis, you and Hopkins are first up.
And you know how I said the final match was with Luis Luna? Well, strangely, for some reason, Mr. Burton has lines for this specific match only. He doesn't have any for Jimmy dealing with Fatty or Bob. Only Lewis for some reason.
Lewis, I hear there's a spot on the cheerleading squad. You should try out. Lewis, I can't believe you let that wimp beat you. It appears Jimmy's more of a man than Lewis here. What the hell are you thinking about, Lewis? Lewis, keep this up and you're off the wrestling team.
Now, I know what some of you might be thinking about, and that is the class rewards. Well, keep in mind the rewards are supposed to be the moves you unlock anyway. But it doesn't really kind of tell us what Jimmy might have got for beating, say, the match classes, if you know what I mean by that. So unfortunately, we don't really know any of these rewards that Jimmy was supposed to get outside the moves. So now let's talk a bit about Dodgeball. It seems that Dodgeball is a very weird thing in itself, because some very early screenshots do show the Dodgeball was going to be available for Jimmy to use in free mode anyway, so it clearly was a very early addition. Yet very strangely, there's another early picture which shows the class tutorial where everyone's in their default attire. Now this doesn't necessarily imply Dodgeball itself as a minigame was a late addition. We know Rockstar didn't even do the winter models for the characters until relatively late into development either. So it could be a case of just get the game mode done first, and then when the game itself is close to completion, then do up the character models. That's my interpretation of it anyway. But you may also notice something jarring with this picture, because there's way more props in the gym, rather than the blank floor in the final release. I'm not sure if this was a permanent thing or a minigame thing, but yeah, the gym looks way more better I find. Now like wrestling, there were 5 levels of this. Dodgeball 1 would have been against the bullies, then the preps, then the greasers, and then the jocks, and then finally the townies. Which may also know follows the exact structure the story does too. This is also reflected in the Dodgeball minigame you unlock after beating gym class anyway. Well, minus the bullies part anyway. Which leads me to believe that this isn't just a minigame Rockstar tacked on as a reward, but instead this was the original Dodgeball class, just minus the possible rewards. In fact, I might as well cover it here, but there is seemingly no rewards for passing the classes at all. I know in the release version when you beat the Dodgeball gym classes you get increased accuracy, which is completely and utterly useless because the Super Slingshot has 100% lock on anyway. There are also unused and deleted models of the bullies in gym attire. Now keyword is deleted because while we do know they existed, they have been completely erased from the game, which would have also been used for Dodgeball and the Mission Slingshot, but it is unknown who would have appeared on the bullies team, except Trent. Trent is the only one we know who would have appeared, and we'll get onto why later. Also interestingly, Dan and Chad were supposed to appear in this minigame, but neither of these have any kind of gym attire, so these two were probably swapped out with one of the other clique members. There's also lines from Mr. Burton calling on somebody to get off the bench and onto the pitch, which says that the entire team was probably supposed to be much bigger, and upon being hit the player would leave and a substitute would come on. Essentially just the same game, just wearing down more players, probably be a bit longer.
Get back in there! You! Get back! You're on! Don't just sit there! Get in there! You're on! Man back! Return to court! Get in! Now! Get off the bench!
Now onto the cut audio files, and every single class intro is going to be much different too, featuring one line from the opposing team, except the intro with Trent, which was going to be a bit longer.
Alright, you feckless maggots! We'll be playing dodgeball for the next while! Much like real life, the strongest will prevail!
Sir, we've already selected our team.
Good! Hopkins, you're with the wimps!
I hate this game! That's because you always lose, loser.
Ah, dodgeball! How I love the sound of boys crying in the morning!
This should be fun.
Alright, you lazy bums, look alive!
Bring it, Hopkins!
I want everyone to give their best, boys! Their best!
We're playing against the nerds?
I brought in some outside talent to challenge your team, Hopkins. Have fun!
Smells kinda smoky in here, doesn't it?
During the entire match itself, Mr. Burton was going to be much more shouty and abusive, depending on what was happening. From the ball being idle to people throwing it, he'd be hurling insults left, right and centre. Here's everything that he would be shouting throughout the entire match.
Pick up that ball, you pansy! Get a move on! What are you standing around for? What are you waiting for? Come on, get the ball! Come on, you look anemic! Come on, show me you have some balls! You call that a throw? You're supposed to dodge the ball, you losers! You're playing like a bunch of ladies! You can start any time! Put some effort into those throws! That is the most pathetic display of dodgeball I have ever seen! You there! Don't be a wimp! This ain't good till someone cries! Get off the court now! Go to the bench! Get off the court! You're out! Out! Ha ha! Looks like it hurts! Nice shot! Man out! Get off the court! You're gone!
And of course the quotes he would say depending on if you won or lost the match.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised, Hopkins. You always struck me as a failure. The nerds lose. Athletic Darwinism at its finest. The weak have been eliminated. Splendid! I can't believe you chumps lost to those nerds. Pathetic! Hopkins and the nerds are the victors against all odds? Ha, well done! Hopkins and his misfits win? What has the world come to? Hopkins, you passed my class. Come back whenever you feel like teaching these wimps a few things.
And finally, to wrap this whole dual class thing up, Dr. Crabble snitched himself as detention lines that he would have said if you had constantly failed the classes, and of course got detention. This is for every single class in the game, but interestingly, for the gym class, he never actually once mentions gym by name. Instead, there's 4 quotes referring to wrestling class and only 1 for dodgeball.
Mr. Burton tells me that you've been doing abysmally in dodgeball. What is it, Jimmy? What are you afraid of? Wrestling is serious. Now stop failing the damn class. Mr. Burton tells me you haven't been applying yourself in wrestling class. It seems you're not man enough to do well in Mr. Burton's wrestling class. I'd think you'd do well in wrestling class given your love of violence, but no.
And with that, I believe that's all the cut content and changes there were to be found with gym class. Hope you enjoyed this video and a look at what could have been. Thank you for watching and have a great day.